From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on March 20th, 2026 from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. Strong Ides of March, and I'm trying to breathe correctly. I just had a piece of pizza, which AT always loves when I eat before coming on the show. He tells me not to do it. I do it anyway.
Rude.
On this episode, besides the pizza discussion, which will continue in the wind down, we fill you in on the big decisions going on with that hemp-derived consumable bill in the Senate. We have a decision. It was made this week on what the Senate was going to do. We got details for you. It was a long week, folks. I'm still recovering from this week, barely making it. We also have a reporters roundtable with some of our favorites. Actually, the table is more of a trapezoid, but we say roundtable because you get it. It identifies as round. Our favorites include Jeffrey Collins with the AP, Maayan with SCETV, and Joe Bustos with the state newspaper. Stay tuned for that. And we got a programming note for you. The next pod is coming out later on Tuesday. I know, we keep messing with the schedule, but that's life, guys, okay? It's all about learning from this. I guess little baby Rena has a doctor's appointment, and she controls this pod now, so we have to do what she wants. Also, we will continue to publish the State House Gavel. No interruptions there. SCETV.org/The Gavel, where Tuesday through Friday, Maayan Schechter and myself bring you recaps, previews, big and small State House moments, meeting schedule highlights, photos, videos, and more. We also want to incorporate you into the podcast in a fun way, not in a weird way. 803-563-7169. That's how you get on the podcast. You have to listen to that little message prompt, and then you leave a message, and we talk about what you leave. It's fun. That's the give and take of the podcast world. We can solve nearly any problem you have, legally and truly. Also, spring has sprung. First day of spring right now. We're talking to the first day of spring. Happy spring. Oh, yes. 803-563-7169. Bring us your pollen. Okay, y'all, we're going to keep this pod pretty tight with our reporter roundtable trapezoid, but we taped that discussion before we had a 12-hour-long Senate day on Wednesday, and before the THC hemp bill passed on Thursday afternoon. So a lot happened in between Wednesday morning and Thursday afternoon. Yes, me and Maayan were in the Senate until midnight with some other reporters. It's totally thrown off my week. But Maayan covered it on Thursday because I got to go to Easley in Pickens County, yes, after a marathon day, for a Republican Attorney General candidate debate. So I will bring you highlights from that debate with 3 Republican Attorney General candidates. Super fascinating. It was the first debate they had. I'll bring that next week. Some details from that. It's interesting. But here is
Hemp.
Did he do he did the voice again? Yeah. You guys still listening after all the sound effects of the last episode? I know. My friend, fellow reporter Anna, she said, oh my God, so many sound effects. I said, talk to that man, 803-563-7169. I literally have no control. Once we finish recording, it's the handoff. Okay, but
Hemp.
I did it again. South Carolina senators ended a two-week debate Thursday that included like we said, about a 12-hour day to deal with some THC hemp drinks to be legally sold in retail stores. You know these drinks, these high rises, the different ones, they're there. You've wondered about them. These are the ones that we're talking about. And in this bill, H 3924, it now prohibits anyone under 21 from buying consumable hemp products. It also allows retailers with beer and wine and hemp licenses to sell up to 5 milligram single can 12-ounce THC drinks. Those would be kept behind the counter.
Safer.
Alcohol, not behind the counter. Follow the logic there. Now, any beverage over that 5 milligram amount would be required to be sold in a licensed liquor store. So your 10 milligram drinks. And gummies with up to 40 milligrams of THC per package could only be sold at liquor stores. The gummies made it, guys. This is really where everything kind of came together. The gummies were literally a sticking point on so much of this legislation because before this, we were talking about 5 milligram, 10 milligram drinks. The gummies got inserted, so here we are. But like the retail rules, store inventory must be kept behind the counter.
Safer.
I'm told this is safer. And again, it's 10 milligrams per gummy, 4 gummies per pack. Now, any existing stock bought before the effective date of this bill, should it become law, could be sold through November 12th. So you can stock up on all your crazy milligram drinks until November 12th. And now you're saying, Gavin, is that all this bill does? And I'm going to say, no, it doesn't. Guys, there's a lot of words in there. This bill also bans on-premise consumption at bars and restaurants, so no one's going to get turned at home team drinking one of these. It also creates a DUI offense for anyone who drives a car with 5 nanograms or more of THC per milliliter found in the blood. So you can talk to your lawyer about what all that means. The bill also keeps CBD products legal and under current state regulations. So
Safer.
again, this deal was a major breakthrough, and it backtracked in the Republican-controlled Senate, which just after midnight Thursday initially failed to find enough votes to pass that bill that put all THC products to liquor stores. So the 5 milligram, the 10 milligrams, the gummies were all going to go to liquor stores. This is a compromise. Of course, not everyone was happy, but that was interesting. I wish we had some more time to talk about this because it was a huge, wild, long-ranging debate. They had lunch breaks. They had dinner breaks. There were brief huddles on the floor. There's backs and forths. There was a lot of amendments. Then the vote happened right around midnight, and I'm following along, tallying it. And it doesn't look like the votes are there. And then not everyone votes when it's their turn because they want to see how someone else votes. And then they started changing. And you'd be like, oh, bill fails. Can't go on anymore, right? Incorrect. When you vote on the prevailing side, which was the failing side, you can ask for a motion to reconsider the bill, which is what happened on Thursday when they amended it again. That was after a couple hours of sleep. People were feeling a little fresher the next day because we did talk to Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey after that failed vote, and he was pretty confident there would be something the next day, and sure enough, there was, because the bill ultimately passed the Senate in a 35-4 vote. Pretty convincing. People are pretty, I guess, happy with the compromise. Again, the 2 Republican senators that voted against this were Lee Bright of Spartanburg and Billy Garrett of Greenwood, very outspoken during this debate, and 2 Democratic senators, Ed Sutton of Charleston and Margie Bright Matthews of Colleton, also voted against this bill. I can tell you from talking with Senator Sutton, a lot of it had to do with on-premise consumption concerns, especially for folks that have dry bars, non-alcoholic bars. These beverages are pretty popular there, and also not getting everything that they wanted in this bill. Picking winners and losers was a big rallying cry for Democrats in this debate. Now it goes back to the House, where they have to either agree with what the Senate did to their bill, their precious bill, or take it to conference committee when you get 3 House and 3 Senate members together to hash out details. So TBD on the THC continues, but we're getting closer, guys, which is, I guess, a good sign for this bill, period, whether you like it or not, just because of where we are right now in the session, which is past the midway point, which is why I had some reporters, some friends on This Week in South Carolina for a mid-session vibe check. You see that segue? Jeffrey Collins with the Associated Press, Joe Bustos with the State Newspaper, and Maayan Schechter here at SCETV. We were sitting around the Twisk trapezoid talking about what's going on. Kind of last time I had him on the show, it was late January. Things were optimistic and bright. Things are dimming now. We're waning, no longer waxing. But I opened by asking Jeffrey about the name, image, and likeness bill that makes details of revenue sharing agreements between colleges, athletes, and teams super secret.
So we'll open with Jeffrey with sports. And, it's a complex issue because in part college sports is just a mess. The rules are ever changing. There's all sorts of things going on. Whatever they pass this year, they'll probably have to come back next year and do something else, and the year after that maybe to do something else until there is some federal solution to all this. But what's going on right now in South Carolina is the payments to student athletes. They are secret, not just on the athlete level, but the schools also want them secret as far as how much money they pay each team. So they don't want you to know they're paying the football team $18 million and the women's basketball team $2 million. They don't want their other schools to know that. They don't want their competitors to know that. So they've asked the legislature to pass a law so it would be exempt from public records law. It zipped through the House. The Senate, there was a little bit of a snag because there was some question about whether or not the written testimony from athletic directors was complete enough. So we did hear from athletic directors right before they had a vote. The vote was 30-13, which is pretty good. We'll get to why that's important in just a second. So it goes to the governor. The governor is concerned about sunshine and openness. He doesn't want the individual athletic contracts, like, how much each person gets paid, to be public, even if they redact the names and things like that. But he thinks that the amounts that get paid to each team should be out there. That, if you're a fan of South Carolina, you should know how much they're paying the softball team versus, the basketball team, the men's basketball team. So he kicks it back, and it passed the House. There's only 2 votes against it in the House. So it's going to get through that. They're going to override the veto without a problem. The Senate is a little trickier proposition. Like I said, it was 30-13 vote. You need 2/3 in the Senate to override. And so you got to get to 31. There are 3 people out. I mean, I think, if you asked me to put a bet on it, I would think it probably gets through the Senate. But if it doesn't mean the end of the world for these colleges either that say that, because what prompted all this is a lawsuit. Somebody, a businessman, that's kind of a open records person. He filed a lawsuit asking for this information. So it just gets kicked back to the court, which has to determine under South Carolina's FOIA statute if it can be released. So this was just kind of a protective measure to keep it from happening. And that's because all of a sudden there's all this influx of money that's come into college sports. Like, you didn't used to pay athletes, and now you have to pay them. There's money that comes in from, there's $20+ million that comes in that you can share, but then there's extra money that comes involved with adding scholarships and things like that. And so schools are having to dip into different funds. And so that's what concerned the senators is, are you dipping into, public money that comes in to pay this stuff? And in Clemson's case, Clemson made the point, well, yes, but, we're just trying to juggle all these pots of money. So every once in a while we might have to pull from something. We're not doing it on a regular basis, and we're not paying athletes with this. It's just a matter of trying to get all the money together in one place when suddenly it was just a completely different atmosphere.
Yeah. Maayan, speaking of money and revenue, we saw that the House did pass its $15.4 billion budget. That's why they're on furlough this week. They take that week off typically after they pass the budget. You covered very closely as well as Joe. What were some of the highlights from this spending plan? And again, maybe what stood out to you, some of the amendments, some of that elongated debate, if anything really changed, the meat of the budget really changed at all?
Right. And it is rare, and I will never say it never happens, because we have seen dollars change on the floor. But I mean, very rarely, especially the last few years, do we see the budget really take an overhaul approach on the floor from the Ways and Means Committee to what they do in the House. As you mentioned, this is a roughly $15.4 billion state spending plan. It includes what a lot of the governor's wish list, maybe not fully to the amount of what he wanted, but especially the $150 million to raise the starting teacher pay to that $50,500 amount. And that is a significant increase from when the governor first took office, when it was below $40,000. We've saw money, about $500 million for the State Department of Transportation, a lot of that money for bridge modernization, interstate. We saw money for tax relief, money for the medical university so that they can build a new cancer hospital, money for the Captain Sam's Spit settlement. That had a lot of debate on the floor, especially with the Hardline House Freedom Caucus. Millions and millions and millions of dollars for healthcare related initiatives, whether it's at the University of South Carolina or covering certain Medicaid costs, or going toward even money for SNAP, dealing with some of the federal cuts coming down the road. So this was a pretty typical budget. Now, as you mentioned, it's going over to the Senate, and as we're talking about changes and what those changes could look like, that's really where I think some of the tougher debate is going to happen. Of course, right after the House passed their budget, which included enough money to lower the top state income tax rate from the 6% to, 5.39%. They passed another income tax bill, lowering it even more to the 5.21%. And of course, they passed the tax conformity legislation, all of which is not funded through the state budget. So now the Senate is going to have to deal with exactly how they're going to pay for those two bills, especially considering now it appears that tax conformity legislation is going to go through. So that'll be an interesting debate over in the Senate. But going back to some of the changes, again, we did not see a whole lot of changes occur on the floor. We saw the Freedom Caucus put up a lot of very expected measures, going after Clemson University, going after the salaries of some of the agency directors that they're not big fans of, like Dr. Edward Simmer, who's the interim public health director. We also saw them go after certain agencies, their budgets total. We also saw them going after programs. Again, most of those, except for I think one proviso maybe that the Freedom Caucus proposed, actually wound up sticking. We did see some provisos get attached dealing with the oversight of the South Carolina High School League, again kind of getting around if that bill, that standalone bill, does not pass, but not a whole lot of changes from what we saw coming out of the Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah, and Joe, a lot of times people use the budget as this way to advance some policy initiatives in proviso form or through funding in some sense, even though it never seems to actually take root. Did anything else jump out to you in this budget debate that you were covering as well?
I think one thing about the budget debate is anyone can talk about anything and everything they want to.
Yeah.
And it's campaign season, so we saw some attempts at some campaigning on the floor. Jermaine Johnson tried to get the expand Medicaid proviso. That was quickly shot down on a germaneness issue. Ironically enough. But back to the Captain Sam spit issue. Supporters of Lieutenant Governor Pamela Vett's campaign for governor used that as an opportunity to go after Alan Wilson. And it was kind of like an audition tape to be on Evett's ticket. It was called out by Bruce Bannister, who also happens to be an Evett supporter. Obviously, that $32 million stayed in the budget with no issue.
Jeffrey, I'm going to stick with you for another surprise this legislative session, and that came with the state Supreme Court election, that race for Justice John Cannon Few's seat. He was up for re-election, usually a rubber stamp process for these folks, these incumbents, unless there's a major concern that's been brought up via the vetting process. Walk us through this situation, the politics of this race, and what happened there.
Judicial elections are have a surprising amount of drama in South Carolina. Even the ones that we don't hear about have a surprising amount of drama. This was by far the most interesting judicial race that I can recall. So Justice John Few, he's on the court right now as Associate Justice. He was running for re-election. What ended up happening is he cast the deciding vote on the first abortion ruling, the one that overturned the first law that was passed. 3-2 vote. Like I said, he was the swing vote. And when he wrote his opinion piece, he was very careful to say, if you do the following things, legislature, I will be able to vote in favor of it if it comes back around to me. And sure enough, he did. He gave him a roadmap and he did that. But that, as you can imagine, ticked off a number of lawmakers. And in this world too, sometimes, and John Few has an interesting personality. That might be a way of putting it. And, sometimes when somebody ticks you off like that, then suddenly you start concentrating on their personality and they start getting bothered, so he started to get less and less support. So the race came down to 4 candidates: Few, Blake Hewitt, Ralph Anderson, and former Speaker Jay Lucas. So that became interesting. Jay Lucas is a lawyer. He hasn't practiced a whole lot because he's been doing legislative stuff and everything. Hasn't been a judge, certainly. He was a judge in Hartsville for like a year, a city judge. So the controversy became, can we elevate somebody with that limited amount of judicial experience to be a Supreme Court justice? And so the House supports Jay Lucas because obviously he was in most of the House, I should say, because he was their leader. And they've got 124 votes compared to 46 for the Senate. So they've got a massive numerical advantage. Well, some very powerful people in the Senate did think that's a bad idea. Don't think that you should elevate somebody with no judicial experience to one of the top judicial jobs in the state. Shane Massey took the Senate floor to speak out against it, which was another
It's very vintage Massey, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, it was like, let's go back to 2008 and watch him throw bombs. It was very
Because he was
interesting.
talking about the perception of favoritism and this perception of corruption that continues to be discussed, and then to have that revolving door, in a sense, kind of gives that idea. So, but then what happened after that?
Well, and what got missed in that, too, is that Luke Rankin wrote a letter that basically said the same things Massey did. It just, didn't get quite as much attention because it was in the middle of a massive report. So what ended up happening is we got one day before the election and Few decided to drop out. Typically, most judicial elections, that happens quite frequently. Like if you have 3 candidates, the 2 that realize they aren't going to get votes drop out. So, it just ends in a very happy kind of way, right?
Yeah, everyone gets along.
Yeah, everybody's happy. We're all getting along. But because Few's an incumbent, that completely voided that race. It didn't take place, no elections took place. They're gonna have to go all the way back to the screening process, which typically takes 6 months. So, they've made no effort to start screening. So there's not gonna be a new justice elected this session, it doesn't look like. So we're gonna be running all the way through the end of this year without that justice.
And it would have changed if he dropped out the day of versus the day before, but we love the drama and we certainly got it. So.
Well, and it throws a complete bomb into that race.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody, the candidates, anybody can run again. So we had 4 candidates this time. We could have 8 next time. If we have 8, then let's the Judicial Merit Screening Commission, which does the screening, they have to call that off by a few. So suddenly they're going to may have to make a decision. Well, this candidate cannot be in the legislative race. Last but not least, Jay Lucas is, there's a limit to when judges have to retire. Jay Lucas is close to that. He'll be even closer a year from now. He says he's going to blow right past it. He says it doesn't apply to me because I'm not taking a pension. So it's going to be an interesting mess next
And then you really start looking at experience. If you don't even have judicial experience, then do you make the cut in the first place?
year. But that may be
Sure, there's going to be a lot of machinations going on.
Oh, just wait until next year when we do all this screening again.
Something to look forward to, Jeffrey.
Of course.
Maayan, you were talking about taxes a minute ago when we were talking about the budget. Kind of drill down a little bit further on what we're seeing with the movement when it comes to taxes. We're seeing that personal income tax bill making its way to the governor's desk. There were changes made by the Senate that the House was kind of surprised by, but went along with anyways. So tell us about that, possibly homestead exemption. And if you really want to get wonky, you can talk about tax conformity.
Yes,
There's so many things going on this year when it comes to taxes.
Another bit of a surprise that happened this legislative cycle. Yeah, so the income tax legislation is going to the governor's desk. It's on the governor's desk. He is likely to sign it. He's obviously been very, very supportive of any kind of tax cut legislation, right? And this is a bill that not only at least attempts to kind of level the playing field with all taxpayers in South Carolina, but it also has the end goal, now this could take years or decades, to completely phase the income tax out. And as we've noted previously and repeatedly, and I do think it's a very important point, is that the income tax revenue makes up a sizable portion of the state budget every year. So without that revenue, it'll be interesting to see what that budget looks like and how the budget debates go. So that is one bill. You then have the homestead exemption property tax expansion bill. That is a bill that was pushed by Senate Finance Committee Chairman Harvey Peeler. That bill is really, I think, up in question right now. The House has not done anything with it. There has been some comments made by the House Ways and Means Committee Chair, Bruce Bannister, that sort of puts that legislation in question. Of course, that's a bill for those who are 65 years and older. There has been a lot of concern about that bill, particularly given the fact that South Carolina is such a growing state, and it's growing in one particular age range. And that
some of our viewers might be affected by this.
That happens to be a lot of folks who are coming to South Carolina to retire, in part because of the tax structure here in the state. So again, you never want to say that you can't be surprised by the legislature, because I move on to tax conformity, which we were all told by the House Budget Chair that they wouldn't probably discuss this bill until after the April 15th deadline. And then Senate GOP leaders essentially said, I think on the record repeatedly, that they didn't have any intention of taking up tax conformity. And then look where we are. The House passes tax conformity. I will mention that that occurred right before they did go on furlough, correct? But also right before the March filing began. So they go on furlough, they pass that bill. And then the Senate Finance Committee has now advanced that bill to the floor. Senator Peeler did say that there are likely to be amendments, so it could very well go back to the House. But again, it's becoming kind of clear that there perhaps has been some obvious outside pressure, not just from the CPAs, which we've heard a lot about, but also taxpayers themselves who want to see the state, who want to reap the benefits of what the federal tax code changes did under President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. I think tax policy legislation, which, Maayan at the start of her state house career would have said, absolutely no way are we going to see this legislation go through. I remember sitting in every tax policy ad hoc committee makeup you could think of. Now we're at the point where these are bills and debates that are really dominating the conversation. And I should mention, they are not cheap, which again, going back to the budget, is going to be something where the House and Senate are going to have to figure out what exactly they want to cut. It also could, potentially impact the want to give out earmarks. We heard from both chairs that they were going to do earmarks this year. Well, certainly that could have some impact on that. So the amount of dollars, both annual and one-time, are starting to get much, much, much smaller.
It will be interesting to see what actually makes it through, but of course we know that personal income tax cut is on the governor's desk. Homestead might be something for next session. TBD.
In question.
I don't want to say anything. But Joe, let's talk about some of those controversial bills that we were dealing with early in session from the House. Talk about the 10 Commandments having to be displayed in every classroom, the abortion-inducing pill bill, and then, of course, the bathroom bill, too, for all public schools and colleges. Those all passed the House, again, up for re-election this year. But they're in the Senate. Do we have any idea about where those bills are going and what might be their future?
Yeah, so those are good primary bills for Republican lawmakers. The 10 Commandments bill, it's in committee. I think the Senate Majority Leader told us that previous iterations of this bill that have come through had a hard time gaining traction or even being enforced. The bathroom bill, that one passed out of a Senate committee and is on the calendar. It probably will come up after the THC bill. So I think that one will be interesting to watch. And then you have the abortion pill. I think before session started, Majority Leader Shane Massey said dealing with mail-order abortion pills and trying to restrict those would be something that could get some interest in the Senate because they passed a 6-week law. They didn't want to deal with too much with abortion after that, but they want to get around this loophole that they've seen as formed.
Maayan, really quickly, I just want to ask you about charter school oversight. That was supposed to be a big deal this year, but we also, I guess we're talking about tax dollars being used for private things potentially, especially when it comes to charter schools, school choice, education, scholarship trust funds, whatever you want to call it. But there was a pretty contentious hearing earlier this session dealing with the state superintendent of education when it came to how some of those funds were going to homeschool children. So walk us through that and what's the latest with that?
Yeah, so let me just quickly mention the charter school authorization because really there is legislation that is moving through the legislature that really would provide greater oversight, transparency over charter school authorizers. That bill passed the Senate. That bill is now in the House. And we have seen, particularly the House Ways and Means Committee and also the Education Chairwoman Shannon Erickson really go at authorizers, particularly Erskine, one of the biggest ones in the state. So I would expect, given the fact that you have both chambers that seem pretty intent on putting a bit more guardrails over the charter school authorizers, to see that move through. Now, as it relates to the Education Scholarship Trust Fund, yes, so senators became aware, so did House members, but senators have taken particular interest in this, became aware of the fact that students who were essentially being schooled at home were also receiving these stipends, taxpayer dollars, through the Education Scholarship Trust Fund law. Lawmakers have been pretty clear throughout the debate that this money was never intended to go to students who were learning at home. Now, the Education Department has created this term for this classification of students called unbundlers. Senators will argue that you can call it whatever you want. These are homeschooled students who are taking advantage of these public tax dollars, when a lot of homeschool parents during the debate over this law specifically said that they did not want the money because they saw that as potentially a road to greater state government oversight, and they don't want that in their child's education. Senate Education Chairman Greg Hembree has a bill that would largely deal with this issue, remove these so-called unbundlers from the program, but he has also acknowledged that this bill is probably going to have a hard time getting through, not so much the Senate, because I think the Senate seems pretty unified over the fact that they feel like they were tricked or lied to, but having a serious issue getting through the House. So Senator Greg Hembree has said on multiple occasions that perhaps the way that they deal with this issue is going through the state budget. So for example, the Education Department had asked for, I think it was somewhere in the $60 million range to go over the 15,000 student cap for this program. The House did not fund that. They only put about $23 million in so they can go to that 15,000 student cap. But Senator Hembree said in a meeting that perhaps we should not even allow that cap to go there. So maybe we need to keep the student population, enrollment population as is right now. So I think where we're going to see the debate is through the budget. Now, does that stick when they start negotiating with the House? A little tricky. But I mean, I think, the Senate seems very, very unified over the fact that they are not very happy with the Education Department.
A lot to watch there. And Jeffrey, anything that you're thinking might also be dead for the session, but also maybe some sage wisdom as we enter this election season, what folks should be looking for?
Well, you mentioned medical marijuana as being a dead bill, but it may come back in the hemp debate. Let's wait and see what happens.
THC,
Could be. And election season, the one thing I'd say about South Carolina is if you're an incumbent, get 50% because you don't want to end up in a runoff. That would be my advice, because you get in a runoff and you got 40%, that means 60% of the people didn't like you. So get to that 50%.
Words of wisdom there.
Like with everything we produce around here, you can find that at youtube.com/@SCETV News. And hit that subscribe button while you're there. You can also watch us live on State House Today there. We stream there live. You can watch it all there. YouTube. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here. This is our chance to.
Gavin,
I missed it.
His brain's not working.
Andy's our lead podcast producer is also here with us.
I'm here.
I don't even know why I still have that written in there. It's a template. The
template.
script. I'm cooked.
Gavin is not firing on any cylinders right now.
Absolutely cooked right now.
Maayan had a great picture of him asleep, resting his eyes.
So I was.
Many are
so
saying.
yeah, many are talking. We were in the
State
Senate
House.
antechamber. Of course, it was 11:45. Been there all day.
Yeah. PM.
23:45 if you're
Yeah,
hip to that. And I'm leaned over. They're comfortable chairs, but they actually get uncomfortable after a couple
You
hours.
were at quite an angle.
Well, the boot's almost all folks who are people on
Boot watch.
What she didn't document, which I knew she was gonna take a photo. Like I know my angles.
Yeah,
especially with
exactly.
her. And so I was chewing gum at the same time. So I was hoping she'd get a video of me blowing bubbles while I was quote unquote asleep.
Resting eyes. Yeah.
It's just she's more of a words person. I'm more of a visual person. That's one of our big contentions. But yeah, she snapped that, put it on the Instagram, and I had to repost
A lot of play.
it. But
That
yeah,
got a lot of play.
It was pretty crazy. It's not something that the Senate typically does, having those long nights. That's so.
There's one a year.
Yeah,
There's
it's more
one a
it's more
year.
of the House vibe.
Yeah. This was Capital D
And
deliberative.
we
all
talked
night.
about that earlier, or at least we talked about it in Status today, where it's like you're gonna watch these votes.
He doesn't
because it's gonna
remember
start-
where he talked about it,
It's like, how's the wind blowing? Where's it going? Like, these are test votes. I really don't. I mean, the fact that we're not. Oh my God, if you guys were watching Status today, which is what we do before. When they gavel in, we're live from the lobby for about
Live from
5
the
to 10
lobby.
minutes.
Live from
Hey,
the lobby.
we like to call it like the third hour of the Today Show, but
Hands
like
on
much
a hard
better.
body. Yeah.
And this time, we haven't had many hiccups, which was pretty good. But our other producer, Karen, who is back here, didn't count us down
Great.
from 5.
Yeah.
And Amy's telling us they're 5, 4, 3. So me and Maayan, and I know, hot mic, there's a camera, like everyone tells you, be on your best behavior, right?
Yeah, don't talk before.
But we all know how, like, I've been here. I know how to handle live
It's
TV.
fun to play dangerous.
It's
It's fun.
fun to play with matches sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And of course, we're not swearing or saying state secrets, which we know. We don't know.
Every time before we start this, Gavin says his social security number right before I start recording.
Hey, what would your salary be if it was your social security number? Say it out loud.
That's what he does right before I press record every episode.
So we're talking and we're kind of goofing and we're like making hand gestures, not like anything bad, but just being goofy. And then all of a sudden, Amy's like, "You're live."
Oh, fun.
And
Yeah.
you just see my eyes like, welcome to the show. We're in the lobby here. And maybe just a little behind the scenes moment. Anyway, 1,500 people watch it. So I guess maybe we need to start doing more behind the scenes gaffes to get the viewers in.
Dude, let's start staging some gaffes. But Gavin,
Isn't that what they do? I mean, that's what social media is now, right? I mean, how do we know what's
everything is fake.
Hard
for
to know
clout.
what's yeah.
Well, it is fake. All of
Yeah.
it is fake. It's easy to know that it's all fake.
And that's why I have to live as authentic as possible. Besides the fake sleeping situation, which I
Hashtag
guess
real
makes me sound fake.
Yeah.
now.
Hashtag real me. Hashtag Gavin. Anyway, Gavin, we're talking about hashtag pizza right now. Okay. There's some pledge pizza back
Pledge
there.
pizza.
And you were telling me that it has some unorthodox toppings.
It's spring now officially, which means we're slimming down for bathing suit season. So
Yeah.
I'm not eating pizza
Except
until October.
right before this episode started.
Except, God, it's been a long day. It's been a long week.
It's hard
and
to
I walked
hear
in there.
his social security number, so much pizza in his mouth.
It's 2-1. I walked in, I was like, I just want a little sweet treat, which
Take
I'm
a
also
hit.
trying to stay
Yeah.
away from. And then I walked in, there's a bunch of like pizza boxes. So of course, this little trash panda that I am, I had
He's
to
going to be eating pizza
investigate
next week, guys.
because I know no one's finished off. Oh yeah, I'm going to scroll it away.
Mm-hmm.
I opened one pizza. It's like cheddar with broccoli on it. I'm like,
Broccoli cheddar
what?
pizza.
How many THC drinks did I have?
Somebody.
I
was
opened
on
the next
something when I
box.
ordered it.
It's another one, like all different kinds of veggies and more prominent broccoli. I was like, okay, where's normalcy here?
Yeah.
I finally found a plain cheese and a pepperoni. I scrolled out a piece of pepperoni. I'm going to go back after this, break my own promise because there's so much. But I came in here. I came here.
Yeah.
I walked in here thinking I would talk to our resident wannabe Italian, basic Italian,
Fake
who
Italian.
knows what
Son's
pizza
name's Dominic.
is. Son's name's Dominic.
Basically Italian.
And I said, AT, get a load of this. Can you believe that they got 2 pizzas with broccoli on it? And you said, what did you say? Tell the people what you said. Tell me what you said.
I don't hate broccoli on a pizza.
Call now, folks.
I think it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not something that I'm trying to get at all times, okay? If I had to go, this is what we're going to
Here.
do. I'm going to do my Mount Rushmore power ranking of pizzas, okay? First on the Mount Rushmore, and this is in no order, is a plain cheese pizza.
Sure. Do it right.
Number 2, pepperoni pizza.
Baseline, of course.
Then now we're going to get into
Get
pizzas
sporty with me here.
that I like, okay? And I like a meatball pizza where they made meatballs, sliced the meatballs and put it on the pizza with a little bit garlic and some basil. I like that.
Sounds good.
That's classic. And then the last one, I don't even know what I would put as the last one.
Margarita.
No, I don't like or respect the margarita pizza.
I like a good big drops of mozzarella and then some big basil on
Number
there too.
4 is a grandma pie, which is square. It's square and thin with sauce on top of the cheese. It's actually probably my favorite kind of pizza. It's amazing.
I'm agreeing with you all those things. I mean,
I bet
I'd put my Hawaiian on
I was
going to
say your 3 and 4s are going to be disgusting.
But you were talking about how Caitlin's family loves like kielbasa.
I think
Diced up.
Caitlin's family, unorthodox pizza topping family, and they make them at home and stuff.
Safe.
And they started
Safe.
They started making it with kielbasa cubed up on there.
I would like
Kielbasa
that.
kind of good on a pizza.
That sounds like a good mix and a substitute for the little cubed ham on the Hawaiian.
Yeah,
I also
Hawaiian
like
pizza
the,
is disgusting.
Oh, I like that little sweet,
Wet.
I like the wet.
I hate wet.
We
on
can
the
agree that
pizza.
we don't really care about the buffalo chicken pizza.
Those are disgusting.
I do like the little the pepperonis with the tiny little.
Tiny pepperonis are nice.
I just like when you get the good pepperoni and you have to like take the napkin and just try and do yourself a little bit of a favor and dab it
and
off.
it turns clear. You can see it becomes absolutely translucent.
Yeah, it's good. I will go back after this and eat a piece of the broccoli. But of course, again, broccoli would be so
Broccoli
far down.
cheddar
It's
is
not a soup. Let's just call it a dip. Let's call it a thick dip. It's
Thank
not
you.
a soup.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
not
it-
meant to be.
if
But then
you-
they would put it on a pizza.
It
Come
smells
on.
like barf. Also,
Yes.
broccoli cheddar soup. It smells like throw
Fright
up.
us on this.
Smells like throw up.
Ugh.
You can like eating it, and it's one of Caitlin's favorite things in the world. But in the car, it smells like someone threw up in the back. It's really gross.
It's an excuse just to eat melted cheese. Oh, but there's green in here. Where? It's
That's another
gone.
thing I
It's
don't
drowned.
like. There is a golden ratio
Thank
for
you.
what a pizza is,
Yes.
with toppings and cheese and crust and everything. And extra cheese pizza breaks that golden ratio. That's
much
not
cheese.
good. That's when you're getting floppy slices. I don't want a floppy slice,
Yeah.
okay? I'm on the record. That's part of my platform.
I'm just having a visual. If you're old enough, the Goofy movie, when they're eating that pizza, the cheese is just dripping, and Pauly Shore's like, like the
and then
voiceover.
he makes the
Pizza, yeah.
Leaning Tower of Pizza of spray cheese. That is one of the best foods
Pauly
in a
Shore,
movie.
what a great voice. Oh, this is devolving into a bro podcast.
The whistle.
The whistle.
I do have a top 10 list of best foods from movies that I want.
Whoa,
to eat.
let's save that for another day.
Yeah, it's really good. But anyway, folks, we
well-
will see you late.
Can I already ruin it?
Yeah.
Twister, steak and eggs.
Those are just the steak.
That entire scene.
Steak from The Matrix, I think, is a better movie steak.
Stop it.
Anyway, Gavin, say the outro. We'll see you late Tuesday.
I am all thrown off now with that. I know you're telling me this is steak. I know I'm going to eat it. Anyway. Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. We just threw some spicy meatballs at you there when it came to pizza. So please weigh in. Let us know, especially out in the Midwest, what you're eating. 803-563-7169. Maybe it's just a casserole and you're calling pizza. That's insane. We want to know. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can stay up to date with the latest news on SCETV.org and SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org, where you can also pledge and donate. We are in the middle of Radio Pledge. Sadly, I won't be on the airwaves because of scheduling. But please don't forget to donate at SCETV.org and to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
What are you eating? Where'd you get pizza?
Not listening to my conversations, please?
Where'd you get pizza?
That's incredibly rude.